Good morning. Hi, my name is Lynn Donovan, and today I have a special friend I want to introduce you to. This is my friend Heidi Lau. Say hi.
Hi.
Heidi, I have known Heidi for several years. She and I have been in Bible study, our small groups together. She's been my co-leader, and she's filled in when I've been ill. And she's also my neighbor. She moved in right behind me a few years ago, and it's such a delight to have Heidi part of my life and part of the ministry that we've done. I've gotten to know her over the years, and I want to tell you one thing. Heidi loves Jesus inside and out, forwards and backwards, and she always inspires me, and she lives her life for Jesus. And so I've invited Heidi into my kitchen today because she has a story to tell that when she told it to me a few weeks ago, I just knew this was something that needed to be shared. And this is not an easy topic that we're going to talk about today, but it's one that is so relevant, and I'm praying, and we have prayed before we started, that it would bring healing into some women's lives. And so today we're going to talk about sexual abuse. Heidi, you were abused when you were a child, is that right?
Yes.
And you're okay to talk about this today, right?
I am.
And you have quite a story to share with us about how this all played out.
Right.
Tell me about how old were you when this happened?
I was between the ages of 3 and 4 and was sexually abused by a couple different people.
Oh, Heidi, my heart breaks over that. And you know what is profound to me? Actually, the statistics on this is that children are abused. It's 1 in 4 girls. And that's astounding in itself. And for boys, it's 1 in 6. So when you look out over your congregation, and you're looking at all these women that we know, they're 1 in 4 have had some kind of abuse in their background. And it's devastating. It's life just altering.
Yeah.
It messes with you all of your life in many different aspects. I know you've shared that with me before. So I'm just compelled to share some of Heidi's victory in that area, and I wanted you to meet her. She's a dear friend of mine, and so she has the most unusual story about how through the years God has brought freedom to her life and how that played out just recently. And I think this is something you will all appreciate. And so let me just check here what I wanted to say. Okay. Recently, you were summoned to jury duty, is that right?
Yeah.
Your number came up and
Yeah.
it was jury duty time. And this is where the story all takes place. So you reported to jury duty, and tell us about what the case was.
Well, when I got there and my name was chosen to be selected on the jury case, when the judge was standing there before us telling us about the case, he said this is a case about a sex offender who failed to register after moving. And as soon as he told me that, or the whole group that, my stomach just started turning immediately. And I thought, oh, I don't want to be on this case. I don't want to do this. And so I sat and I listened, and I said, okay, God, you called me to jury duty. This is your agenda for me today. And so I sat and I waited, and he handed out these questionnaires and asked each member who had been selected to fill out this questionnaire. And it was many questions on whether or not you had been abused or had known someone who had been abused, and just a whole bunch of information. And so I proceeded to fill it out. We turned it in, and were called to come to the courtroom, back to the courtroom later that day. So took off to lunch, and then we came back, and ended up turning into another day where we had to come back because they had to go over all of the papers.
Right.
So the next day I showed up to jury duty again, and they called off the names of the first people who would be on the panel to be interviewed.
Right.
So we sat.
This is for jury selection for this particular
Right.
case. Okay.
Right. So I thought for sure the next day that they'd call me and say, "Oh, you can go home," because of everything that I had been through. But no, they wanted to interview everybody. I think they must have had quite a few cases that were maybe similar to mine.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
So we we went through the different people. He went through each person. We had a list of other questions that we had to answer out loud. And as I sat waiting for him to call my name, I was one of the last people that he called. And person after person requested to speak in private in the back room. And so he would take them in the back with the attorneys. And the person who was on trial was also in the room at the time.
Right.
And so I tried to just get over the fact that he was right there in the room, and not being the person who had molested me, it still was really hard to
Sure.
be in the room knowing what he had done. And so anyway, so they went through the different people, and like I said, people just kept going in the back, and finally it came my turn. And the judge had my sheet in front of him of what I had answered the day before, and immediately asked me, do you want to go in the back to give your, answers?
Right, and be interviewed.
And the whole time I had been sitting there praying and saying, God, do I want to go in the back room? Or I just felt really compelled to stay in the room there were probably 100 people in the room.
And why were you compelled? What was that?
Because I all of a sudden in praying and going over it in my mind, it was like God just said, no, I don't want you don't need to hide. It's not something that you need to hide, because it was not your fault.
Not you.
You don't need to be the one in shame.
Right.
And I don't believe that he wants the sex offender to be in shame either. I believe that he wants him to be freed
Right.
from what he's done and what he's doing, and to be forgiven, because that's what Jesus is all about. And so when it came my turn and the judge asked me, do you want to go in the back room? I said no, and I'm holding the microphone in my hand, and so I don't like I'm shaking, and I'm hoping that I'm not going to start crying, but immediately just start, overcome with emotion and crying. And I said, no, I don't want to go in the back room. And he said, are you sure? And I said, yes. I said, because I don't feel that I need to be in hiding. I don't need to feel ashamed for what happened to me. I was sexually abused between the ages of 3 and 4. I said everything, and I said I do not feel that I would be good on this case.
Right.
And because that was the whole question they were asking, do you feel like you would be good to be on the jury? And I said, at this time, I really don't think that I would be, because of these reasons. But in speaking that out and feeling like I didn't have to hide anymore.
Right.
And it was a time of releasing that, from not feeling like I had to hide, and there was a victory that I just felt that day that Jesus had led me to, that I was like, okay, this was
the jury box.
Yeah, I know. And I felt like so many times I feel like I'm on the stand and I'm being accused, and I was like, no, I'm not the one being accused. I'm the victim here, and I don't want to be the victim anymore either.
Right.
I want to just receive that healing and just know that God has freed me from that, and I'm free, and I don't have to hide what happened to me.
So this turns out, really, it gets even better from here, because then, so he finishes questioning you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens?
And I wasn't smiling. I was still, very emotional. And so the judge says, if you need to go in the back at any time, feel free. So I'm like, no, I think I'm fine. And so he said, okay. And so I handed the microphone to the next person. I'm like, oh, that's done. And so the lady next to me spoke, and then the lady next to her, one of the next ladies, I can't remember which one, wanted to go in the back again, which was fine. And so I went out into the bathroom, and as I was getting up and leaving, the deputy that was in the courtroom came over to me, and he just said, you hold your head up high and just keep your head up, you know.
Neat.
And so
Impacted him.
it did.
I
And
wonder who else in that audience. So, okay, so then what happened?
so everything finished up because I was near the end of that group, and then they were going to break for lunch. And so he met with the lawyers just briefly, and then ended up releasing myself and 4 or 5 other people. And as we were leaving the courtroom, one lady came and just put her arms around me and just said, "I'm so glad that you said something." She said, "You're completely right." She said, "We hide and we don't need to hide.
Absolutely.
It's not, we didn't do anything. It's not something that we need to be carrying that shame around." And I was like, absolutely. I said, it's just, but I hadn't even realized it to that degree until that happened that day.
Fascinating.
And
So it helped you by taking that bold step, and who knows who else was sitting in that room.
I'm
Obviously that
praying
woman.
that it did. Her
And how many more now today? I pray that people know you don't have to be ashamed. You
Yeah.
don't. So okay, but then okay, so you're leaving the building.
So I left the building, and as I was going to get in my car, I heard a voice behind me, and it was the deputy again. And I think it must have just really moved him, and he well, it
Followed
did.
you out there.
He did, and he said, "I just want to make sure you're okay, and just that you did the right thing, and that you aren't to blame, and that there are just evil people in this world, and you know, make sure that you just educate your kids, and so that they know, and because I
they're
have
protected.
3 children that."
Sure.
You know, obviously that's something I've had to give over to the Lord too, is, you know, God, I know you're going to use whatever happened in my life. I don't want that to happen to them,
Right.
obviously. And, but whatever trials we go through, God has a purpose in it, and he can bring it about in a way that you just can
Right.
never imagine, you know, when you let him.
Right.
Otherwise,
At jury duty,
yeah.
you know, I'm just
Yeah, jury duty.
overwhelmed at how God will orchestrate those encounters. And thank you so much for being
Thank
brave.
you.
I know that was hard. It was hard, but said no more. And I just think the devil was sitting there laughing, and you got on the stand, and he just shied away because you're not going to put up with the lies anymore.
No.
And I hope there's other people that find freedom. I hope there's other people that find freedom in her story. And I would love for you guys to leave a comment here for Heidi. We would love to help you. There's resources available. So much healing can happen. You don't have to live ashamed.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything, and it's happening. It's just rampant. So thank you.
Thank
Thank you for being bold today, for
Thank
sharing
you.
this story of jury duty.
I feel like it was too I'm almost happy because I am happy about it, but at the time it was
Sure.
just very emotional, and I just today, even talking to you, I feel the freedom even
Yeah.
more today, and being able to talk about it and not get so worked up emotionally about it, because it's been an ongoing from almost 40 years of my life
Wow.
dealing
And
with.
I know that's something you have to work through, maybe continually, but you've come so far. And Jesus is going to bless you and use you. It's been a delight to have you here in my kitchen and part of my life. And your heart for Jesus just beats loudly. And I pray that the words we shared here today will just reach out and help many out there who are struggling. Thank you, and I hope to have you back again for some more interviews into the future, okay? Love on you, girl,
Love
okay? All right, and thank you. Bye-bye.